My name is Gail Baumgartner, and I'm a senior systems analyst. And I've had the pleasure of working with MnDOT since the very beginning. And what I'm going to be showing you today is AASHTOWare project, basic tips, tools, and fun stuff that just to explore the system. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right. When you come into AASHTOWare project, the first thing it's asking you for is your login information. You will have your user ID and then your password, and your password is case sensitive. And at this point, I'm going to click log on. When you come into AASHTOWare project, what will be displayed is what we call the dashboard. The dashboard is a collection of one or more components. A component is basically information and processes grouped together for a specific purpose. As you can see here, each component is highlighted in blue. So you have all the so you have here construction, materials, and some of the other areas such as reference data. As you can see, there's quite a few entries in here for reference data. Now, what determines what you will actually see when you log in to AASHTOWare project is based upon your role. Your role is a collection of security access rights to information, to the various components, and to the processes. What we see here is right now I'm signed on as my role as MnDOT Material System-wide read-only access. And I have many areas, many components available to me on my dashboard. What we're going to do is we're going to change our role. So the dashboard will be a little bit easier for you to see. To change your role, underneath your home button next to it, there's a drop down. And at that point, this is where you can actually switch roles. You do not have to exit out of the system. You can switch roles by just selecting which role you wish to go with. What you'll see here is I actually have 3 roles assigned to me. Everyone must have at least one role within AASHTOWare project. What I'm going to choose is the material test lab supervisor. As you can see here, I've got 4 main components. And even within those components, for example, under reference data, you'll see that I don't have as many areas as what the SysWide area had. So basically, MnDOT has determined the roles, and MnDOT has determined that for a material test lab supervisor, these are the components that they have access to actually be able to perform their job. Up here and exploring some of the other areas within AASHTOWare project, what you have here, this is our menu bar. This menu bar is going to be available on any of the pages within AASHTOWare project. You'll always have this available. Kind of exploring this particular area, we know that we can switch roles here. Also, if you are anywhere within AASHTOWare projects, if you've opened up, say, labs, if you want to come back to the dashboard, you always just click your home button. The previous will let you, if you have a page open, it's like your back button. You can go to the previous page that you were on. If you want to, if you've been several different places within AASHTOWare projects and you want to go back to a particular area, you can simply select it here and it will take you back. Or if you want to go back even beyond these 6 entries, you can select any of these areas. It keeps track of where you've been in the system, and it's just shortcuts to help you for navigation. So right now I'm going to click previous, and that takes me back to my dashboard. The next area, my pages. Basically, this lets you bookmark a page. If I, as a lab supervisor, if I'm always going in and looking at samples or creating sample records, then I might want to bookmark that page so I can go directly to the page from here. The other areas is you have your log off, and then you have what we call global help. We have help is designated by the question mark, and you'll also see question marks on the individual components. Help, this will actually show help for this particular component for system admin. But looking at global help, when you go into this, you will actually be able to see help on in any area. So what I'm going to do is, let's say I'm just learning AASHTOWare project and I want information on creating a sample record. So I'm just going to type in sample under the search and click go. What will pop up is it will show you your results. I have 144 results, and then it actually ranks the different results. I was looking for maintaining a sample record, so I'm going to click on that. In help, it will tell you a little bit about the window itself, and then you'll notice all these fields. We actually have a glossary in here that will give you definitions. So if I don't know what a sample ID is, I'll click the link, and it will actually tell you from the glossary. So each field as you go through, if you're uncertain, you can simply go to help and get a glossary definition. And let's say at this point, I want to know how to actually copy a sample. So if I click copying a sample down here, help also identifies how to actually do a process. For example, here's copying a sample, and it gives you the navigation steps. Another area is I'm going to click on content. Under content, you're going to be able to see the various areas within AASHTOWare project, and you can just click on different areas to explore. Let's say I want to know about the reports. So I'm going to go Global Actions, and I'm going to come down here and click on Reports. And I'm really interested in construction and material reports. This will give you a list of standard reports that are available within AASHTOWare project. Now, reports can be standard reports, or your agency can actually create the reports. This is just a list of the standard reports that are available. Okay. Also, another great thing is that the help will also give you navigation on where you need to go from the dashboard to the component material to sample records. So I'm going to close help at this time. I'm going to come back over here to the dashboard. The other areas to explore on the dashboard is this section right here. These are what we call quick links. And on the dashboard, it actually takes you to the various components that are listed here, just to help in navigation. These quick links are going to appear in other areas of the program, and I'll point those out as we navigate through the demonstration. Now, the next area that we want to take a look at is if we, let's say I want to take a look at materials. Now, under materials, you'll notice that there is an arrow next to for each individual component here. And I'm going to go ahead and let's just click that. And it tells you what actions can be performed. For the action here, it says I can actually open materials. I could get to this by clicking the open button here, or I can click on this link. For the demo, I'm just going to click the open button. And this is an overview. This is a list of all the materials that are actually within the database. Right now, it is showing 3,647 rows that are available. It's actually showing 10 right at the moment. For each material for the material overview component, you've got your help, but you also have an arrow, and this is component action menu. Now, for materials, there are no actions available. Some of the actions might be, for example, on a sample, to actually be able to add a sample. But it just depends on your security and the function of the particular area as to what is available here under actions. But if we take a look at the individual row, we have a material here, topsoil. If I come across, we have our drop-down arrow, open row action menu. I'm going to click that. And from here, you can actually see we have different actions, we have views, and we also have reports. So for the actions here, what I could do is I could open up that particular row material. For views, I could see, are there attachments linked to this particular material? Are there links? And if I wanted to, I could actually run a report for that, for the topsoil borrow. But let's say I don't want to scroll through or click on here and say load next 50. I don't want to do all that work to find a particular material. So what I'm going to be using is this filter. So what I'm going to actually look for concrete materials. So in this quick filter, what I do is I simply start typing in what I'm looking for, and it filters the list down by what I'm actually asking for. Here, I'm looking for any materials that have concrete in the name, and it will pull that up automatically. If I no longer wish to see this list, I can clear my filter. I'm just going to show first 10, and I'm back to where I was. But let's say I want to focus in and do a more advanced filter. So I'm going to click Advanced here. And when I'm filtering, I have a whole selection of different fields that I can filter from, visual columns. And I'm going to choose material code. And then there's also hidden columns. So there's a lot. This is very versatile to use. So I'm going to go material code, and then you have a number of different operators that you can use. I'm going to leave contains, and I'm going to go AGG. And actually, instead of material code, I'm going to change that to material full name. So I'm going to change, I'm looking for any material full name that starts with ag for aggregates. I'm going to apply it without saving. And here are all my aggregates. Now, let's say I want to change this. I also want to sort my list. So I'm going to sort by material full name, and I'm going to sort it descending. I'm going to apply that without saving. And it has actually sorted in descending order. If I wished, and this is usually a search that I would perform quite a bit, I can actually save this list. I can name it. I'm just going to call it ag. I can make this a default setting for myself, and I'm going to save it and apply it. When that happens, that filter is available to me in the selection dropdown. Now, another thing that you can do with the filters is, let's say I no longer need this particular filter. I can simply delete it. And delete this setting. And it is no longer available. All right. What we're going to be doing next is we are going to be heading back out and clicking Home. Under Home, we are going to be taking a look at sample records. Under sample records, for the row action menu, I actually have a different choice than I had in materials. I can actually add a new sample record at this area, or I can click Open. I'm going to be opening. You're going to be getting a demonstration on how to add a sample later on in the program. When you come in here, most of the windows, you'll have what we call an overview. Just like you had in the materials, you have a list of materials. Here you have a list of all the individual samples in the system. We have 1,194 samples here. Now, looking over here on the component, we have our component, and we can actually have the ability to add a sample. And of course, if you add a sample, you have to be able to save it. So that's why you have a save button here. Now, looking at an individual sample itself, if I come across and choose the row action menu, you're going to see there are a lot of different options. You can copy, delete, and there's different tasks. You can authorize a sample, unauthorize, split a sample. You have your standard views also. Are there any attachments, links? And then you have reports. These are sample reports. And these are all these particular sample reports were created by MnDOT. And then the sample label test and test results report, those are part of the standard reports. What I'm going to do is, let's go ahead and I'm going to search for a particular sample. This particular sample, you may be wondering why I'm typing in these numbers. Well, these numbers correspond to the last couple digits of the sample ID. So that's how I personally pull up samples and find them. Everyone will develop how they wish to do that. Sometimes they may use the username. In this particular instance, this is the individual sample record. You've got different fields located here. Just pointing out some of the fields that you will encounter within AASHTOWare project. You're going to have date fields where you would populate a date. You actually have drop downs. These are actually pulling from code tables, and these are populating. The decisions on what to actually enter in here were done by your agency. Some of the other areas that you simply have field ID. You've got different fields where you can simply type in. One of the really nice things about AASHTOWare project is if you're looking at a field, say sample date, and you're not sure what the meaning is, if you just highlight the particular field name, it gives you a definition. This definition should be the same that's in the glossary. A state can actually change that though, if they wish, but it helps especially when you're first learning AASHTOWare project. Any of these fields that are marked in red, these fields are required by the system before you save. So in other words, I would have to populate acceptance method, sample type, and sample date before I could actually save this sample record. You also have collapsible areas. You can collapse or expand particular areas as you're navigating through the sample records and other areas of the program. Then the sample record also has tabs. And on these particular tabs, they just display other information that you can populate for a particular sample record. We have our quick links up here to areas that you normally would navigate to when after you've finished creating the sample record. Coming over, let's take a look and let's see how difficult it is to actually generate a report. For this particular sample record, I had to go to the sample overview, open up the individual sample record, and at this point, I am going to run a material universal report. After I've clicked that, the system knows that I've already picked this sample record that I want to run the report on. I'm going to generate it as a PDF, and this is a custom report. So at this point, I'm just going to click execute. And it is loading, and here it is. I'm going to maximize this a little bit because there we go. So you can be able to see. This is an example of one of the reports. You've got information about the sample record itself. This is the traffic tape test report. And this is pulling the information from the test and populated on the report. And it says here out of spec limits. It has the test procedures, and it looks like the PSI is out of spec. And one of the great things that you can actually design on a report is charting. And this is an example. I'm now going to close that example of a report. And I'm going to click our home button just to come back to the dashboard. Another area where you can actually run a report is here on the menu. And these are actions. These are what we call global actions. So in the global actions, it's not tied to a specific record like we had just saw when we ran the report on that particular sample record. If I wanted to run a report, instead of diving down and picking the individual sample record through this navigation way, I can actually come here to generate report. Gives you a list. First thing you have to do is pick what report do you want. Well, we know we want to run the universal report. And there it is. I just simply start typing in, and it pulls up my list. This is the one I'm going to do. I check that. Then it's going to ask, which sample record do you want to run that on? And I'm just going to type in the last couple digits of the sample ID. Here's my sample. I'm going to select that, and I'm going to say execute. And here is my lab report again. So there's various ways of navigating and getting to different processes. And that's just to demonstrate some of the various ways. And I'm going to back over here to home. Now there's several other areas under actions that we're going to explore. However, I don't have access or security rights to that area because I'm still signed on as a material test lab supervisor. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here, click Expand Home, and I'm going back to my material syswide read-only role. In this particular role, I'm going to click under Actions. And here I can actually go to execute a process. And I have the ability to come in here and actually run one of these processes. Process could be importing data into AASHTOWare project. It could be exporting out data, or it could be some other type of custom process. We're going to be taking a look at actually the custom process that Suzanne had talked about a little bit earlier in the presentation about the technical certification import. I pick that, and then I can choose a person. I can actually list out, this is the list of all of the users. But in my instance, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to just choose one person, and it's going to be me. And I'm going to run the process to import data from the technical certification database. So I'm going to click Execute. Now this process, as Suzanne mentioned, does run nightly. And this should just take a second or two. It does come up with a message that indicates how long it took to actually process. And it gives you your total processing time. At this point, so now my testing certifications are up to date. And the reason that, of course, it's so important, and it's wonderful that you do have this ability to import data in, is because AASHTOWare project has to know what your testing qualifications are. It does limit the tests that you see and that you have ability to actually enter in data for based upon your qualifications. What test are you qualified to perform? So underneath, going back over here to our actions, if we started a process and I wanted to see the overview, this gives you your history. It tells you, when a process ran, the start time, finish time, if the process has any output files. If you have a process, a system process history, these are system files. Here it's payroll exception processes. You can schedule a process to run. For example, the tech certified database load, that is scheduled nightly. And in another database, you would see the different entries that it was running. I'm going to click back over here under Actions. And the last thing that we're going to be talking about is taking a look at this is we've talked about, once again, these are global actions. We've talked about looking at process history, how to generate reports, and how to execute various processes. We also have global attachments and global links that allow you the ability to have an attachment, but not to a particular specific record. Same thing with links. And at this time, I'm going to go ahead and click my home button. And we have gone through the presentation. I'm going to turn the presentation back to Gina. Was there any questions?
Hi, Gail. Yes, thank you. That was a wonderful job. Learning something else every time. I haven't seen that process go through yet, so that was pretty cool. Yes, we do have a question. I think it's from Mike Evans, Evan1MIC. I think that might be from Mike. And the question is, when you are looking for your sample, can you sort off of the lab reference number? This is going to be needed in the lab. And I did a quick check on the sample record overview. And yes, the lab reference number is available from the sample record overview in the advanced filter, and you can use it in the sort or also in the filter to help find information. Do you have anything to add to that, Gail?
No, I think you pretty well covered it, Gina.
Gina, Gina, I might also add that that was a configured piece to add that lab reference number, and that lab reference number is available on all of the materials worksheets as well, or to sort on all those sheets. So if there's a need, we try to make it happen.
Thank you. Thank you, Dina. Maybe you could, we have a few more minutes, could you display the sample record overview for us, Gail?
Sure. I certainly can. And let me just go ahead and clear the filter. Here's all of the list of the samples.
I see lab reference number added right there to the columns here too.
Sorry.
So Gail, if you type in yellow, I believe that was in one of your the demonstrations that you can type in yellow that was in part of the lab reference number. So those are the samples that that yellow was added to make that filtering happen.
Very nice.
Yeah.
And then in the advanced, we can show that as well.
Sure. Here's your lab reference number. You can say contains yellow.
Then in the sort, yeah. Also, there's that. I think that was his original question about sorting. Thank you.
Okay. All right.
And a little addition to that is you can save those filters if you have the access for yourself, so that you can go back to it, like, and use that whenever you'd like to for that, and you can have it as your own default setting so it automatically shows that list of samples and with that filtering criteria you've saved when you come back to that window.
Yep. And there's the filter just created.
Thank you.
All right.
I don't see any other questions. Does anybody else have any other questions? You can submit them into the question and answer session. Okay.